Welcome to the At Home-ish podcast, creating spaces where we belong. I am so excited to be here this morning with a very special guest who is not local. I've had people ask me before, is your podcast only for people in Snohomish? And it's like, no, you can be at home-ish anywhere, because most of us have moved from someplace or moved to someplace. It's not the place where we were born, but it feels at home-ish. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is toss it on over and give her a moment to introduce herself and share what she wants us to know about her.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I feel at home-ish though in Snohomish right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So my name is Catherine Dennis, and I don't really know what to say about myself. I have lots of things. I'm going to keep it short though.
Okay.
My best job and the most important qualifier of who I am as a person is I'm a mom to 7 children.
Mm-hmm.
I adopted 2 that don't look like me, and that has curated who I am as a human being. And I did a lot of that by myself as a single parent. And my day job is the intersection of my passion and my intellect, and that is an early childhood educator and a leader of ECE practitioners who are building the brains of 0 to 5 little ones so that they can grow up to be great adults. I'm a former foster parent. I had over 30 little lovies through my home, and I'm an adjunct faculty at the community college where I teach ECE courses. That's a really short bio.
And the fact that you took the time to come all the way out here to chat with me.
Yeah,
Wow.
Because you've impacted my life. I have learned a lot from you, the way that you've shown up on social media, the things that you've shared, the conversations you've been willing to have with people at different times, caused me to think and learn and put myself in positions with people who can teach me differently, because truly our life experiences shape us.
Right.
And so I was shaped to see everything a certain way. And that was hurtful maybe and impactful to people that I was around. And so I had to do a lot of inside work and be open to feedback and humility and reshaping years of indoctrination from the way that I was raised to unearth who I authentically am as a human being. And when you have life experiences that are like creating neural pathways, like rewiring those things are different and difficult, especially at the ripe old age of almost 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you guys aren't in the room with me. You'll see the pictures when we post on social media. This woman is not almost 60. Stop playing.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't uncover the gray.
Hey, know, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I try to say clean living keeps me up, but
it matters, you know, but what we put into our bodies, what we put into our minds, it really makes a difference.
Yeah. A huge difference. And I'm big on that mindset stuff. And I think that's a lot of it is just, I see myself as strong and capable and young. And so just keep being strong and capable and young and not getting tired. So it's working.
Yeah, good job with that. You were mentioning something about the way you were raised and how you've had to question some of the things that you've encountered in your recent life. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, so I was raised by a very hardworking, authoritarian white man who was raised by very racist parents. I was taught at a very young age that everybody around me is white. I don't think I saw an Asian person until I went to college, and there were 2 Black families in our town. It was all white. I just never saw diverse. And when the one young, fine, kind Black man in town asked me on a date, my dad said no. I just wanted to go to Kool and the Gang and get a kiss, and he said no. And I said, why? And he said, because marriage is hard enough, but throw race in the mix and it's going to be that much harder. I was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I didn't go to the concert, but I had a connection with this man. And I kept thinking to myself, like, he's like one of the kindest humans I've ever met. Why is this a problem? You know? And so he went to Notre Dame and I went on with my life, and we still are, I would say, the best of friends. He will reach out and send a heart and say, I hope you're doing well or whatever, so we still are connected, because that's when I noticed something was wrong.
Yeah.
That's when I noticed that this didn't seem right. What was going on here? But my life experience in this white world in some ways made me so naive, because I would say things like, fast forward to when I, after I was divorced and all these things, I was working with an African-American woman, amazing, another person. I have sat at her feet, and we were doing a training. I think there were like 300 or 500 people in the room. And I said what every white person should never say. And I said, I don't see color.
Yeah.
And with best of intents, that was the best day of my life. That was the best day of my life.
Okay.
With best of intentions, I said that. And a woman in the audience raised her hand, and she said, and I was pertaining this to being an adoptive parent of a young man that doesn't look like me. And so she said, I'm adopted into a white family.
Okay.
And she was a Black person. And she said, I need you to see my color. I need you to see that. And I said, tell me more about that in front of all these people. I need to know more about that, because I was like realizing that what I said was not okay. So in front of all those people, I became probably the most humbled I'd ever been in my entire life. But there was the other point where I thought, I got some work to do. I have some work to do. And so my friend used that many times about what culture humility is, and being humble and being able to sit in spaces. I was so afraid, though, to ever bring anything up again, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But it also helped me to realize that that's a really, really good place to rebuild those neural pathways and rebuild who I needed to be in this space as an adoptive parent of children who didn't look like me. I was proud of myself that I had gotten my son different shampoo for his afro. Yeah. I thought that was, I'm such a good diverse mom.
That's important, though.
Yeah. I was like, or that I let him get earrings, because I never would have let my other sons get earrings. So I'm grateful. And I was like, okay, so Catherine, guess what? You think you've done the work. That was just the beginning of
for sure
trying to unearth these things. And when I would try to mention things to my parents about these things, the things that they would say back to me, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how strange they sound to me. And I can't remember exactly my mom's words, but when I would say, Mom, do you understand that you will never know what it feels like to be marginalized, set apart, oppressed, when you walk into a place that, if people act a certain way, that they're acting a certain way because of a bias, you realize you'll never have that. And she then would say something about, well, do you know when your dad went into a gas station and nobody wanted to help him? And I'd be like, oh my gosh, she just could not, she couldn't, when he'd be down helping people in the South after a hurricane, and he'd be the only white person in the thing. And she'd be like, well, do you know how they treated him? I'm like, yeah, good. They had every right to treat him that way. They thought that he was going to be like every other person coming through. So like, Mom, stop. I just knew that it was going to be so hard to get through to them or to have them understand. And then, other things that I did in my personal life, like getting divorced. We were very religious. You don't ever do that.
Right, no, yeah, don't do it. Right.
I was looking through the Bible, infidelity or death. I was looking for the pages, if there was anything that could let me out, And so when I had to do that, and now all of a sudden I'm a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist, I started implementing it into every training I gave. I made it be the first thing that we talked about. I made it be a lens within which we looked through, not boxes we checked.
Right.
And so as I grew more and more into creating belonging in spaces for everybody to be at the table, and then my eyes started to open up, things changed. I knew that my parents would never, get on board with me. And I knew that I would be that outlier. And in that outlying position, I find great peace. And, there's other things too. I remember being on a text thread and they're all talking about the LGBTQ thing that was hanging at the hospital and how they're going to go in and talk to the president about getting it taken down and how dare they. So this is, I guess, give you a little bit more of an idea where I'm coming from. Okay. So on the text thread, I said, well, I guess this isn't a good time for me to come out. I was joking, but I was just like, and then my brother, who's kind of more aligned with me, he's like, good one. And I said, well, it's funny how now everybody thinks I'm a lesbian woman in my family. I'm like, well, I'm just like, whatever. You can think whatever you want, but I'm going to let you know that that's not where I stand. And that's not what
absolutely.
That's not how I do business. And so I would say that the miles between us are a blessing and a curse. Although I love my parents and my family, my way of life or the way that I see things or the way that I handle my life especially with the current administration. You know, they're all lovers of the current administration. And so it's difficult for me.
Yeah.
So,
I've had a number of conversations recently, and I know people often say it's taboo to talk politics.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but why have we politicized people? I do greatly struggle with, some of the things that are going on, because there are parts of things that I hear. And as that curious person, I want to try to think deeply about it and understand, okay, what's the motivation? What are we wanting to accomplish here?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some things when we think about structure and functionality where it's like, okay, maybe that makes some sense. But then as we're looking at, well, we're not going to listen to the courts. We're now going to work to erase work that's been done so that people can be included, be supported, have access to what they need. And it makes it hard for me when I think about what I was always taught the Constitution and the Declaration was all about, where we were a welcoming nation, where you were able to come here and not be forced to worship a certain way, that your speech wouldn't be imposed upon.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't say certain things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, say it out loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then isn't that imposing on speech and
Mm-hmm.
denying access?
Yeah, it's an amazing conversation to have when we're talking about building belonging. And I have it on my resume too, where in the Black Panther, they say, the wise build bridges and the fools build obstacles. And
Yes.
I quote that because I think about that, and I think I will always be an innovator and a solutions and a reframer and a bridge builder. I will always, whether we have money or we don't have money, that's who I am as a person, and that's how I will show up. However, when I see 0 to 5 children not being taken care of, or TANF being zeroed out, or Medicaid being impacted, I think to myself, the ripple effect of pulling supports from people that need it, that don't have the things that they need to survive for whatever reason. I remember a social worker when I was doing foster care said, "Catherine, you'd be so much more successful if you would not focus on the parent, focus strictly on the child. The parent, I can't change the parent, but I know I can make sure the child has meals and a dental home and a medical home if they have wraparound services, if they have supports. So while we're building their brains, we can provide those things. I'm in the thick of it. I see the dad that comes into the CSO office with a diaper that's overfilled and the child has no shoes on and the children's messy. That's what I see in my work. And so when I see all those things getting cut, I'm sure he doesn't feel like he belongs. I'm sure he feels like the obstacles are many just to get free diapers somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about what I feel you just said was, when we talk about focusing on the children, because yes, we absolutely need to support our adults, our parents, and our communities. And looking at some of the things maybe that they are or are not doing right now, how much of that is a result of what they did not have as a child, And so I think it's really important that we're not ignoring the adult or the parental need, but as a person or as an organization, we're focused on the kid. We're going to make sure that they have what they need. They've got this resource. They understand that they are loved, that they're supported. And let's also now make sure we are connecting this adult to the other resources so they can access what they need. So we're not overburdening one or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We're starting in our work, the importance of fathers, raising them up. We need you. I was in a home towards the last half with these kids. They didn't have a father. There was no male influence in their life. I see the deficit. And a lot of these cuts, unfortunately, are going to hit the marginalized communities that much harder. In the last fatherhood cafe that I attended, one man that was sitting across from me had just gotten out of prison. And he still had his ankle thing on and was being monitored. And he was there because he wanted strategies on how to integrate back with his daughter, because it had been 5 years since he'd been with her. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. And I want that for every father, to be able to sit in a space where he feels safe, even though he has an ankle bracelet on, even though he's a man of color, to say, I hear you and I see you. I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that stuff is free.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is free.
People just don't have the information.
Yeah.
So on that note, could you please tell us a bit more about the Fatherhood Cafe?
Yeah. Well, my day job, I'm a director of early learning, told lots of divisions and kind of course correcting the whole culture of the organization. And so being kind of a yes person to partnerships. So Fatherhood Cafe is funded, I think, through the state. And so they, just trying to reach fathers and provide spaces, safe spaces for these men to come together to be built up. And so I said, yes, I'll partner with you. Come on in. I'll provide you the space. I'll give you interpreters. I'll give you childcare.
Mm-hmm.
I will provide tech because they couldn't travel because of budgets. So a local man who has a nonprofit came and was the MC, and 40 fathers showed up in that space. DOC was there because there was a lot of dads that have certain stipulations on being out in the community. There were other dads just looking for spaces. There was a woman lawyer and a city councilman all coming together to really raise up dads. So when this was happening in my mind, I was thinking, why don't I have this going on in my division? Why don't I have this? I have over 400 or 500 fathers that I could touch in this space in the division where I work. And so we created a fatherhood group. We have no structure. We have no curriculum. We have nothing yet, but we have people. And so our kickoff is June 12th, right at the beginning of Father's Day weekend. And our COO, who's a man of color, is going to speak. And then the man in the community who has the Loving Father Initiative, he's going to be present. And we will just go from there. And it'll be a space where hopefully in time when we have what's called funding, money, right. I can always find $500 for hamburgers and hot dogs. I'm telling you, I'll find that money anyway. I'll go ask for it if I have to. But just having a place where we say, I see you, Dad, and you're important. And so put it out to all staff to make up the names and get some cool names, things that they came up with, Dad Impact, Raise Up the Fathers, different things. So we're getting the name and we're just going to hold space and give them the support that they need and tell them they're important, So that's good stuff too. That's really good stuff, especially for the ones that walk through life and are petrified because they might be split up with their family to be sent back to Mexico or we have that fear all the time. I'm in Central Washington.
Right.
I'm in agriculture land. I'm in places where people are picking apples for us and they're afraid that they're going to be separated from their family. So coming out into the community, it's difficult. They're afraid. So they know they have a safe space with us. And there's Zoom options too for those dads that really don't want to leave their house and feel safer to do that. So trying to, take down all the obstacles. We'll feed you, we'll teach you, and we'll keep you safe.
One thing you're making me think about right now is, just kind of going back into, well, I'll start with the 1960s and even, going further back than that, because when I think about some of the gangs, that came up out of South Central Los Angeles, and, part of those gangs came out because there was previously the Black Panther Party that was working to support the communities, but then you had the CIA working to, and, we have all that stuff documented. They were working to disrupt that work that was designed to support the community. And so here are these men who are just trying to find their way and take care of their families, their communities, because opportunity's been denied to them. I mean, if we go back hundreds of years, and I'm not going to go so deep into the history, but people were enslaved. Then slavery ended. Then there was the Jim Crow era and segregation. And so for hundreds of years, based on the way someone looked, they were denied access to opportunity. And so then people want to wonder, oh, well, why are they now involved in illegal drug trade? Or why are they, working all of these jobs to where they're not spending time with their kids? It's like because opportunity and access has been denied.
I 100% agree with you. And you know what? Not only has opportunity access been denied, but you've been going up a mountain with a 500-pound rock up on your back.
They cut it down to 500?
Okay, maybe it's a ton, but
right.
I think that I've been gifted, which is a really weird word, to see glimpses of that with the people who have been in my life. The oppression, the experiences of my friends of color out in this world, I've witnessed it.
Yes.
And if I hadn't have witnessed it or been witness to those things, I might have thought because of my life experience, that there's an exaggeration there.
Right.
Or like what everybody says, we have a black president. Look at you've arrived. I want to say, just like, that is so weird that you just said that.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever seen a person of color move through the world with them side by side, and you see some of the things that you see, like, wait, did I just see that? Wait, did that just happen? You think to yourself like, oh, wow. For instance, my son, all the different things I've seen him up against. And I've had to say to the principal, hey, so could you go in and see if this teacher is like targeting him? I didn't want to be that parent, because my son is could be a total and complete,
We can be.
Could you see if that teacher's like racist or something? Because they're constantly getting after him when they're talking. And he's telling me that he's not talking. He's lined up. He's not doing that. Or if a ball gets thrown, PE.
Yeah.
He went in there, he watched over course of time. Yeah. Never was the person doing, but it was always my son's name being called out. That was one of many times. Again, I told you with the WIAA, Mick, I love him. He listened to my son. My son was like being called the C word and the N word on the court from 7th, 8th grade. He was a powerhouse. In fact, he played basketball. I called it basketball because it was like football and basketball. So he was pretty aggressive. He's a great little football player. And he would be called these racial slurs. I won't name the districts.
Yeah.
But these districts have been on news for their things. So investigations would happen and things like they would become unfounded because it was like nobody could prove it. And so my son went in front of all the WIAA and said, I'd like a change. I'd like to see there be something with alleged, because it happens all the time. And I go to a ref, which I'm always told, go to a ref, tell the ref. My son would get so enraged. He would just get so mad when they would always just say, I didn't hear it. Sorry, can't do anything about it. And these kids were, doing the N word and the COON word and things like that. So, well, I remember what the one lady said. She goes, we already have things on the books that take care of that stuff. And it's like, nothing's being done. So the head guy came out to football game in Wapato or one of the lower valley schools and met my son, shook his hand and said he's going to try to get change. And sure enough, they did it. And my son tried it out because he called a kid the N-word and they stopped the whole game. Everybody had to go to the side. He goes, I just want to see if it worked. I said, son, that was not okay. That was not okay. If someone had blindsided him or done something or whatever. I watched that stuff happen. And I think to myself, I knew because I was trying to get my principal's license, I couldn't go on the bus and yell at the coach and say, what's going on here? But my son did. My other son did. I have 5 sons. And my other son walked on that bus and let that coach know because it was obvious. There were people in the stands that heard it. Nothing happened. Over and over and over again. Nothing happened. So I'm like, here I am with my son watching this happen as a white woman and becoming enraged. Can't even imagine how other people feel, that are having to deal with this on a daily basis. And then after my divorce, I, just figured nobody would want to date me. I have 7 children. Who wants to date a woman with 7 children? But I ended up dating this wonderful guy. His son was on the same team as my son. And he was black and his son looked just like my son. He was mixed race. And so I would hear how he would talk about how he was treated or how people would, that was the first time I noticed that people didn't really like to see people who were white and black together, the looks or the different things. And I was like, wait, what? Because now as an adult with eyes to see and understanding that you see color, you got to see the difference.
Right.
He would say things and I'm like, wait, what just happened? He's like, yeah, that lady just gave us a really bad look or whatever. And so I would start to look through that lens. I would start to see what he would see. And I'd be like, is this like all your life? And he goes, all my life, all my life. And he said, at work, I have to try that much harder, or I have to be that much more careful. Or if I'm on an elevator, whatever it was that he had to do differently because he's not only a man, he's a black man, so I always made it a point if I was on the elevator with a black man to say hello.
Yes.
And not make that man feel like I was afraid of him, and to show up differently. And that was a gift. He died at the beginning of the pandemic. That was a painful part of my life, but no stranger to pain. So I got through that guttural grief with all my children. But it was such a gift to be able to stand next to him and see through his eyes the way the world treated him.
Yeah.
And so the journey has not been easy. It's been embarrassing. I've said things I shouldn't say because I didn't know better. And having a girlfriend who's a person of color, she always smiling at these Black men that would walk by. And I said, why are you smiling at all those men? You're flirting. And she goes, no, we're not. And I said, yes, you are. He straight up looked at me, smiling. And she goes, that's what we do.
Right.
We nod, we smile. And I was like, oh.
That's the thing.
See?
Yeah.
I stood corrected,
Right.
So she's teaching me. I was like, can I do that? She goes, nope. I said, okay, fine. Like if I do that, it's going to be taken differently, but she can do it. That's the way it works,
Yeah.
I mean, I smile and I'm kind, but no, she was smiling, fist bumping and kind of like they knew each other for forever. I'm like, dude, that's a stranger. And she goes, no, not a stranger. That's a brother. I was like, okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear this because I don't always get that response from people.
Really?
And when it doesn't happen, I'm kind of like doing a double take. Like, okay, like, did I do something wrong? Am I not presenting the right way?
They were raised by a white woman.
I'll give the nod. I'll give a smile. And I'm like, all right, like, okay, clearly you're not my people if you're not responding.
Yeah,
you know? And one of the things that I'll own that I did start up years ago, being in Washington and especially up in this area where there's not a whole lot of folks who look like me, I always say hello to people. I try to always smile at people. And then that's kind of my cue of if someone's not going to take the time to at least smile back or acknowledge that someone is speaking to them, it's like, you got something else going on right now. Yeah.
It's on them. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I always say hello to people on the elevator. I get so much grief from people. It's like, maybe people don't want to say hello. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to show up as a fucking ray of sunshine. And I don't care. If they don't like it, they can put their sunglasses on.
Yes. With the sun shining brightly. Love it.
Doesn't matter to me. I'm just like, I'm going to keep showing up. But it has been really, really an amazing gift to be able to see through the eyes of my friends. And like my girlfriend who I was talking about, we were in the Dulles Airport Capital One Lounge. Shout out to the Capital One Lounge. I love that lounge. Yeah. But she was in there and everybody there is very diverse. It's Washington, D.C. But she was going to go up and get a drink from the bartender. And she came back without a drink. And I said, why don't you have a drink? She goes, he didn't wait on me. He wouldn't wait on me. And so in my whiteness, I said, no. That's not why. Because I know the look on her face where she's trying to tell me it's because I'm a woman of color. And I'm like, I'm the only white person in this room. It cannot be that. I'm dismissing her, I'm dismissing her. But she can say that to me without me getting butt hurt. Or if, she sends back her food, she would say, it's because I was like, oh, come on. She goes, don't dismiss me. I'm like, okay, dismissing you again. I got to stop because I can't imagine doing that, right? So because I can't imagine doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I marched right up there to the bartender and I said, my friend was up here to get a drink and she didn't get a drink. I always think I'm being helpful, And I said, why didn't you wait on her? He said, she didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay. I was ready to jump down his throat,
Yeah.
And so I get her drink and take it back over there. And I never really said to her what he said to me because I've learned that I can easily dismiss someone's feelings by pushing my reality onto them. It's like, that's her experience. She moved into a white neighborhood and university place and how there was like picketing because they were a Black family moving into a white neighborhood.
Oh no.
In the 60s and 70s, 70s.
Yeah. Okay. That's not
picketing,
surprising.
Right? So that's her experience, right? Is that she's not welcome here. She doesn't belong.
Right.
So as her friend, I was always gifted with opportunities to create belonging for her and learn. And I would butt up against that with like trying to tell her, it's not because of your Blackness. But I had to stop that, and so it would come out of it would come to right here. And I'd just be, stop. So that's been such a great teacher too.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for my self-awareness. I'm grateful for my ability to take feedback because it wasn't always that way. I think the evolution of who I am as a person and growing has helped me to be able to sit in the space of being able to be corrected. That's kind of like changed my life. Being able to not take things personally, but just to say that nugget of wisdom It's going to make you a better person. It's time to implement. I was just in the cab, the Uber in DC, and It was a Black man that was driving, and my colleagues were in the back. So we headed up to Capitol Hill, and it's a sea of white. It's a sea of white men. And immediately I felt my skin crawl. And I said to him, I said, I do not want to get out. It's a sea of whiteness. He goes, girl, I cannot believe you just said that. I said, I realize the problem. He goes, well, I'm proud of you. And I was like, thanks, man. I see it. I feel it. I feel it. And you know what? Nobody can take ownership of it. Doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean that. It means that we have to be able to sit in someone else's shoes. And then from that vantage point, go forward.
Right. It's like I feel like you're speaking to the behavior interventionist in me. When I hear about your friend and the first response, maybe a response, I won't say it's the first response, is that the interaction was based on race. And we cannot confirm whether it was or it wasn't. But when we talk about a trauma response, we're talking about trauma-informed practices where, oh, well, they were picketing here, or, hey, here's the history. Here's what I saw in the news. And going back to that crowd of people, the people who were doing it looked like that crowd.
Yes.
And so now I have this deep response to, oh, it's a sea of white. Oh, this person didn't respond to me. This person didn't take my order. It's because of this reason, But then going back to the behavior interventionist portion, maybe there's an interaction where on the surface for us, not for them, for us, oh, well, maybe it wasn't that. But we know better than to go back to this person who's in this escalated state at that time to say, hey, let me teach you about why you were wrong and what you were thinking in this situation. It's like, no, this isn't the time. But maybe we can have a conversation about it later and just really kind of explore how we're showing up in the world and how others are showing up. Because I'll talk about my mom real quick. When I brought her up here, we took some time where we went up to like Friday Harbor. We spent time in Mukilteo. This was before I started working in Snohomish, so we didn't come here. But, we just kind of went to some different places. And growing up in Georgia, where I was in Georgia, around Atlanta, most people look like me, right?
Yeah.
And my mom gets up here and we don't see a whole lot of folks who look like us. But one of the things she mentioned with a lot of the connections that I have, she's like, there ain't a whole lot of us up here, but these white folks really like you. I'm like, oh man,
good perspective, Mama.
I know,
Look at
right?
that. Awesome.
She's like I was concerned a little bit because you are far away from home. I can't just jump in the car and come see you.
Yeah.
But the relationships you have with people and they seem genuine and they seem like really good people. And where I grew up, you have to question it. And I'm not saying I don't question it, I do walk in the room sometimes and I'm thinking, perhaps in the back of my mind, it goes back to what you were saying about having to be extra nice.
Yes.
Having to not be perceived as a threat.
It's like code switching your culture.
Right. 'Cause I'm not a small guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Army, football, I walk in the room, people typically know I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's like if someone feels threatened in any way by my presence, how's this interaction now going to go down? So let me smile. Let me be friendly. Let me be the person who is like, I'm going to be quiet first and listen as opposed to imposing my presence in a space. Because, that may not work out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think too, going back to my friend and how she experienced things, I think honoring each other's life experiences, because that is truly what has shaped who we are as humans. It doesn't mean that story is true. It doesn't mean that person was being racist, but it honors her life experience and her perspective, because your own perspective is your own reality. And so as her friend, I want to hold space for that. And as a trauma-informed practitioner, which I am, as someone who understands social emotional skill deficits and behaviors that challenge. I also know all behavior is communication.
Yes.
So I'm able to read between the lines and know when a conversation about what if the story you told yourself was different than the story that you told yourself 5 minutes ago. What if it was he was really busy? Because truly, if someone just looked at it, they'd be like, okay, there's every culture in here but white, and I am the only white person. So the deduction, inference, or whatever you could do would be like, no, he's not racist because but it wasn't the right time to have that conversation,
Yeah,
right? And I have those same things because of my life experience. I'm stuck in some spots and I need safe places to unstick and to grow. And so I want to give that same grace and ability to hold a different perspective. Someone else can hold a different perspective. I can hold a different perspective so that we can grow and build those bridges to one another. I think if everybody in the whole entire universe was that self-aware and no ego and wanting to be right, I think the world would be a really beautiful place to live.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So the adoption of my children, grief, divorce, all those things, even so much to go into like, I always judge people who are divorced. They must not have chutzpah. They must not be able to handle life right. They must not be able to do, well, guess what, girlfriend? Joke's on you. You're going to be divorced. And you're going to have to sit in a space where you're going to have to hold space for people who are divorced. I always am like saying, well, it wasn't because we didn't like the same color. Well, it wasn't because of this. Trying to like explain why. It's like, okay, another place where I'm just humble as heck. And you're that girl now. You're that girl. And guess what? You have 7 children. I mean, I had to get out with Google and God because there was no other way to get out. I had to figure it out, left on my own, figuring it out. I mean, so all these places that I've been that I judged people or I had strong opinions.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking by the collar, throwing down in the mud, get you real dirty. I could learn your lesson now. Yeah, I'm good. And I'm changed, So in all of those hard things and all of those awful things, it's like beauty from ashes. It's like, it's good stuff.
It is.
It's good stuff because I know now with my book and the things that I'm doing and the way that I'm moving through the world, my impact, my collective impact is like when you throw that stone into water and you just see like that. I know that I can impact people by being vulnerable enough to say, I totally sucked and I needed to learn and I needed to grow. And I am in nowhere near perfect, but I'm a persistent trier, consistently trying to be persistently consistent in the way that I show up. Did you get that consistency part?
Consistency is so important.
Oh my gosh. But there's a persistent trier of being consistent because I feel like I suck at being consistent too. So I try to do push-ups every day while I'm making my coffee. So I mean, in all things, I try to be so aware and persistently curious and persistently trying to be better and hold space for other people's perspectives and their realities and their life experiences, which I never had anybody pick it outside my house because I didn't belong.
No.
Never in my life.
Yeah, never had that happen. But I know I've told the story before about when I first started working in this school district and having people protesting at the school board meeting about the position. And I'm like, all right, this is the work we're going to do.
That's right.
And so I feel like it's kind of, battle hardened me to where it's like, maybe certain things haven't happened before in my life, but okay, here's this situation. Here's how we're going to go in and address it and, be ready for whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a warrior.
But I think that's one of the things when we think about some of the challenges that we've had in our lives, because even when we talk about divorce, my mom was divorced when I was 2. And I didn't know what the hell was going on then, but It was like, it was something that was always in the back of my mind. And then when she remarried, my stepdad, of course, he had been divorced. Mm-hmm. So divorce was something that was, part of the vocabulary.
Yeah.
And when I met someone, my first wife, and we were talking about, well, we don't get divorced. And I'm like, okay, because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
But it was like when we, were dating and talked about getting married, I adopted more of that mentality about, okay, well, if this is something that we should never do and we work and we figure it out, then dang it, I'm in for it. I'm gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
And so then as time went on and I felt like it wasn't mutual and you're pouring all of yourself into it, it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah. It's such a construct to, so you grew up with it being more common. And I grew up never hearing of any family. I remember the first time knowing a family that got divorced. It was 8th grade. So it was 1980. And it was, oh my gosh, it was the news that rattled the town. So living out here in Washington State, away from family and having to go through divorce when I was making $27,000 a year, that was a battle, and trying to figure out how I was going to make it. And then moving through a town that's small and seeing people. And I told myself, head down for 2 years. After 2 years, nobody will even remember. They won't even think about it. But we were the Catholic family that sat right in the front, right there. We never missed mass. We showed up looking perfect. So it was an incredible shock, but people don't know what they don't know. So saying that I'm a divorced person, I will never be the poster child for divorce, a badass single mom. No, that is not my tagline ever, right? Because I believe in the sacredness of connection. And I believe in the sacredness of not necessarily marriage in and of itself, but that loyalty to another human being. That's beautiful. And I changed the trajectory of my children's life by choosing to divorce and leave their father. And that's not lost on me, how that was difficult. It's almost like handing a trauma to your child on a silver platter. And you hear people that might say your pain, that you couldn't endure, your pain caused, your children's pain, all that stuff that I've had to kind of like get through and kind of be okay with my decision, and knowing that I could never in that construct fully become the highest expression of who I was supposed to be. It wouldn't have worked. I couldn't do it. So it's been a journey, my own personal journey. I when I was starting to write my book, I kind of wanted to write about that. But then my counselor said, I wonder if you should write from hope and choice rather than wounds.
Oh, I like that.
And I said, you know what? I did. So there's been many iterations of my book. I think I finally got it dialed in to how we always have a choice. We always have a choice.
Tell me more about your book.
So I'm going to tell this funny story. I can't believe I'm going to tell it.
We like stories.
Yeah, this is a really funny story. In fact, it's kind of what made me kind of think about my book. I always wanted to have a big family. And so marriage wasn't going good, but I still wanted to have this big family, and I wanted to be a foster mom, and I wanted to love these kids and provide safe places. As a trauma-informed practitioner, I knew that if these kids had safe places to land, and I could give that, that'd be good. So I get 2 infants. Aiden came at birth, and then Gemma came. Her mama was 13. She was in a basement apartment crying for 48 hours. She came to me with no voice and bruises up her back, and she looked like a Martian. She was 11 pounds at 8 months old. So I bore a 10-pound baby. So just kind of like think about that. So she was like this scrawny little thing. So the first thing I said to the department when I picked her up was, when's her birthday? I don't know why I thought that. They said 9/13/05. And I was like, she's staying. Because my last 3 were 7/11, 8/12, 9/13. It was consecutive. So I was like, okay, she's staying. So when Gemma was 5, Gemma had her voice back. She's a little Latina. And she was the light of our family and just funny. Gosh, she was funny and never stopped moving. I don't know if she had some sensory issues, but I would just tickle her arm, mama, tickle my arm. And she would stop moving. So her body would stop. But I have a little book that I'm waiting to illustrate that I wrote about her called Gem Jiggle Wiggle, because she was always wiggling. Yeah. So when she was sitting around the table with her brothers were talking about their penises. When you live with boys, that's what they talk about. Yeah. And so Gemma was very annoyed by that. And so she goes, I do not have a penis. I have 2 fats in a line. And so I used that as my business. And so it was very professional during the day, but funny as hell. My whole thing was the unfiltered authenticity of reclaiming and becoming who you're really supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so I used her tagline with that. So my book is all about the unfiltered becoming, reclaiming my soul of who I am. And everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a journey that can be so impactful for another's journey. And my story, there's people that have experienced worse things than I have. There are people that, have different stories, but every story needs to be told. So My hope is with my book, I want to see merchandise all through the world. And I want people to be like, oh my God, you read the book. So we're all carrying things that say 2 fats on a line and people be like, I gotcha. I saw you read that book. Yeah. So that's kind of my hope, that we all wear these things that really do mean vagina.
Yeah.
So people wouldn't really expect that from me because I'm super professional. But there's the other side to me, the polarity of my personhood, who I am.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, which my mom is so disgusted, but I don't really care. I'm walking to the beat of my own drum. So I just figured, in line with that, I'm just going to continue that. So I just want to impact women. I want to make them not forsake who they are. We all have a place in this tapestry of life. And if I can tell them if I can do it, you can do it. I'm a persistent trier. I don't have $1 million home in Aspen. I don't have a bank account that says 27 grand every month and I can fly first class every time. I want people to know they can. The person who I was, densely constricted by my construct of how I was raised, to the evolution of who I am now, is just nothing short of amazing.
Yes.
And so I want to walk as a guide on the side, a person that can help people kind of unearth their soul, their authentic soul, not who I'm going to be for that person. Who am I going to be for that person? Or if I'm pretty enough for that person, do this, just be your own self. Show up as who you are and the rest will kind of fall into place.
So one of the last questions I tend to ask my guests is, if there was a theme song that would play when they walked in the room, what would it be? But when we talk about our unfiltered authenticity, when we talk about being unapologetic, oh my gosh, there are so many songs that come to mind. If you're in my car right now, please do not be offended by some of the language because it's about to get real, right?
Yeah.
So now I got to ask you, okay, unfiltered, unapologetic, what would your theme song be?
Well, you know what? It's kind of funny that you asked that because I played it the other day for my staff and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you just played that song. But my daughter, she's the problem. It's her problem. She does these things to me. She sends me the song, this is your hype song. This would be good for you. And I listened to it. I was like, yeah, it is. That is right. So it's the one that Kesha has out, Yippee-ki-yay. It's like, you just got a brand new car. Hose me down at the trailer park. I'm like, yeah, I like that song. I'm going to walk into that song. And it's just like, it's so incredibly nasty. It's so bad. And I actually love another Kesha song, Raising Hell. I don't know if you've ever heard that one, but
I don't think so.
Yeah,
no.
Those are my hype songs. And it's like, before I go to heaven, I got to raise some hell. It's like, I know that some people probably think that's sacrilegious, but geez, Louise, we have a life to live.
Yes.
We have a life to live. We have people we can impact. We have things to do. And these songs, maybe they are to the world. They're a little bit like, but my mom always said, don't listen to the words, just listen to the beat. So I'm just channeling that song, that thing that, those are my hype songs, and I can't live life without music.
Yes.
I cannot live life without music. And if you played that Yippee-ki-yay one, you'd be like, that doesn't really match her. There's polarity in who I am. And I think that's what makes me so cool.
That is awesome. Thank you so much
You're
for that.
so welcome, Will.
Oh my gosh.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
We don't do it if we can't have fun, right?
That's right. I wouldn't have driven this far, but I knew we'd have fun. And I knew that I could honor you and tell you the difference that you've made in my life and how you show up in the online space and places that you've made me kind of do a little bit deeper thinking and growth. So don't ever let it be lost on you that you're not making an incredible impact with the work that you're doing.
Thank you. That's always good to hear. I know I've said before, we do it for a cause, not applause, but it is absolutely good to hear that, people are, messages are resonating and it's making a difference. So
yeah, it is.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too.
Before I do my little summary, is there anything that you feel you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
No, just be willing to grow. Don't take things personally. Let it sink in. And just be willing to grow and see things from a different perspective. Stand in other people's shoes, ask questions, be curious. Curious is the gateway to intimacy. When you can be curious and you can question, you become more intimately involved in the topic, the person, and understanding. So ask questions.
I don't even feel like I could sum that up any better. I love that curiosity is the gateway to intimacy. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for driving all this way.
It was only 2 hours and 27 minutes, not that far. I got to grow while I was driving, listening to good things. It's just a wonderful way to spend a Saturday before Mother's Day.
Yep.
You know,
True.
I mean, I do have a couple kids, so I can claim that role, you know.
Happy Mother's Day weekend.
Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for listening to our craziness. And I really appreciate, even as we hit on some serious topics, that we have fun, okay? Don't take yourself so seriously. I do want to leave you all with this quick reminder. Regardless of what platform you're on, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Audible, wherever you listen to podcasts, please download, like, follow, comment. Let us know you're listening. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. We want to create content that will keep you coming back. And as always, when we wise up, we rise up. Peace out.